Okay, at the end of the last video, we were talking about decibels and the loudness of sound. Decibels named after Alexander Graham Bell, and using the log system, compare the loudness of sounds to our threshold of hearing. What I forgot to point out to you was in your notes you have a chart that looks like this. And it tells us how loud, it shows us the decibel level, the intensity level for sound. So threshold of hearing is 0 because we're comparing it, like that's our baseline. So hearing rustling of leaves would be about 10, whispering would be about 20, quiet radio 40, hopping up here, siren, that's about 30 meters away, up at 100 decibels. Indoor loud rock concert, 120. 120 is the threshold of pain. And then jet planes at about 30 meters, 140. So if you've ever been on a plane and you're sitting on the plane at the airport, you'll see the guys who are loading the luggage and working outside. They have those big earmuffs on. And it's on purpose because you can rupture your eardrum. Sound can rupture your eardrum. Happens to tons of people if they're around like an explosion or something. They'll rupture their eardrums and they can't hear. But even without rupturing your eardrum, you can damage it. And so then you'll have hearing loss. And that's my brother who's the farmer who drove tractors and ran power saws for how many years of his life, who now wears earmuffs, but it's too late. He has a hearing aid, which of course he can't wear while he's working. There's not much sense putting a hearing aid in when you're going to run a tractor. So for him, he didn't take care to protect his eardrums when he was younger, because who thinks of it when you're younger? Just like younger people who play really loud music directly into their ears. You're hitting your membrane with way too much energy and it will damage it. But lots of times people who are older also lose their hearing, can't hear low sounds, and that's because their eardrum needs to be hit with more energy in order to vibrate, the way I said in the last video. And so for them, hearing aids can also help, okay? And what it does is it amplifies the sound. It gives it a higher intensity level as it's coming into your eardrum so that your eardrum will be able to vibrate. Okay, so that's loudness. The second one which affects our hearing is frequency. And in sound, frequency is the pitch. It's the pitch of the sound, how high pitch or low pitch it is. The higher the frequency, the higher the pitch. Now, for all of you who are musicians, if you played stringed instruments, you would know that you can alter the frequency, the pitch of the strings of your instrument in 3 different ways. One is with the length. And so I'm thinking a guitar, right? As you put your fingers on the different frets, you're changing the length of the string. And the longer the string, the lower the pitch. Okay, so by putting your fingers, making the string shorter, you can make the pitch higher. You can play different notes, different keys. Okay, the second one is thickness. And again, on a guitar, I don't know about the other stringed instruments. The guitar is the one I'm most familiar with. But on guitar strings, they change thickness as you go down or up the guitar strings, right? The thicker the string, the slower it vibrates. The thinner the string, the faster. So thinner, faster it vibrates, and so the higher the pitch. This actually is connected to our vocal cords as well, right? The thinner our vocal cords, the higher the pitch we have. It's why guys who when they hit puberty and begin to get muscles, their voice tends to get deeper because their vocal cords are getting thicker. And then, of course, there's the Vienna Boys choir scandal. Vienna Boys Choir is a famous choir that young boys sing in, because lots of young boys can hit a perfect soprano pitch But once they hit puberty, that changes. So a number of years ago, it was discovered that the parents were feeding these young boys hormones so that they wouldn't hit puberty. So they were trying to block the male hormone coming in so that the guys wouldn't develop, so that they could stay in the choir longer, because the Vienna Boys Choir is probably the most prestigious choir for young people in the world. And so, of course, that would make the parents look good. And so they would give their young guys hormones so that they wouldn't develop and then have to leave the choir. And then the third characteristic of strings that we can change is the tension. And again, when you're tuning a stringed instrument, we often tune it by tightening or loosening the string. Okay? Increasing tension will increase the pitch. Okay? So the higher the tension, the higher the pitch. Okay, so that's for stringed instruments or any kind of strings. Now, our human ear can respond to frequencies as low as 20 hertz and as high as 20,000 hertz. This is known as the audible range. Now, again, just like the threshold of hearing, the audible range is for a typical person, meaning it's the average. In reality, young people can hear sometimes as high up as almost 30,000 hertz. But as you get older, it drops down. And even now, as we get older, it drops down. So it's not uncommon for people my age, whatever age that might be, to only be able to hear like 18,000, and people my mother's age maybe only 16,000. Now, why is that? Because remember, frequency is how many vibrations per second. And so a sound hitting our ears at a frequency of 20,000 hertz is vibrating 20,000 times a second, which means our eardrum needs to be able to vibrate 20,000 times a second. As we get older, that's tough. Nothing about us moves that fast anymore. Even at your age, there would be some of you that probably could not hear 20,000 hertz anymore. Okay? On the other end, 20 times a second is not really that fast. Anything lower than 20 times a second, our eardrum registers as separate vibrations. They don't realize that they're all together. And then, so, but if any object that can vibrate more than 20 times a second, though, would create a sound. So if I was really good and could move this pen back and forth more than 20 times a second, you would hear a hum from it, a frequency from it. Okay? So 20 to 20,000 hertz is the audible range. Anything lower than this, anything down here, is called, I wrote that in the wrong spot so I don't have room, it's called infrasonic sounds. These would be like jackhammers vibrating up and down. These we can hear, these we can feel. Even if they're outside the audible range, we can often feel them in our body or on our eardrum. And up here, things above 20,000, these are called ultrasonic sounds. And I'm sure you've heard of ultrasonic sounds. We use ultrasounds in medicine. We use them to see. So you go to the hospital, they put jelly on the part of your body they want to send ultrasounds in. They put the little wand in the jelly, they send the ultrasounds in, it comes back, and they read it on the screen. You can't hear it, but you see it. And the jelly is to make sure the sound wave doesn't go through air, because it travels best in liquids or gases, so we don't want it to go through air. We often use ultrasounds to help stimulate nerve growth if you've had a nerve damage. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to post today is a little test to see how your hearing range is. If we were in class, we would do it together, but we're not. So it's a link to a website, and it's called, on the website,